Hey, so this is 31st March midnight. Um, I kind of like randomly stumbled on this game maybe a month ago. Uh, and I didn't play it, but I mean, I guess obviously the title caught my eye. I was thinking, hey, it's actually going to be, well, March 31st soon, so it might be interesting to play this game. I thought it might be interesting to play this game on this particular day. And yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Funnily enough, it is actually kind of sprinkling outside today where I'm at as well. And it usually doesn't like rain that much here. Um, so there's a little bit of an interesting synchronicity, I guess, there. It's like a very weird rain pattern today. It's not even a sprinkle. It's more like I don't even know what to call it. It's like a step less than a sprinkle, if that makes sense. Uh, yeah. Anyway, it's yeah currently 9:27 p.m. on March 31st, and I'm not sure what to expect from this game, like most games I play, but I'm excited to check it out. Let's see. Let's do full screen. Okay. Sorry. Okay, let's get into it. By the way, today's been a very interesting day. I feel like I saw a lot of like 13s a lot today for some reason, like an inverse of 31. And as I was walking to lunch on my way to from work, I felt like I just saw like a bunch of random small animal carcasses on the floor. And there's like other weird things here and there today, like a truck that we usually contract with. The driver's truck just like overheated and broke down on the way for a pickup or something. So yeah, today was just like a little bit weird. But then, like by the end of tonight, like I also saw like a 777 number on like a license plate uh next to us, and it's weird because I feel like the number 13 is like weirdly lucky for me sometimes. Um I'm not sure why, but anyway. Uh okay. I don't know why I started off with that, but okay, Julie, we're heading out. Don't forget to turn off the lights when you're done, okay? Amy. Yeah, of course. Oh, whoops. I've been so into my prep work for overtime that I almost didn't notice Julie tapping on my shoulder. She and the rest of management are about to leave for the day. Uh, oh. But thankfully, she doesn't seem to mind my absent-mindedness. She simply shoots me her trademark thumbs up, and as always, I instinctively return it with my most practiced smile. Julie. Looking forward to seeing what you'll come up with next. Amy. Thanks. Have fun out there. Haha, you don't have to worry about that. And just like that, I'm left alone in the office. Well, isn't this funny? I always thought of myself as someone who doesn't pay much attention to her surroundings, so I didn't expect having the whole place to myself would feel so unnerving. Oh, that does have to feel a little bit weird, huh? Almost all of the usual background noises are gone, and the few that are left, such as the humming of the ACs or even my own breathing, have become disturbingly loud. Now I know that this sounds like a real crummy atmosphere to work in. I get it. I don't mind it that much, but I'd be remiss to say that if it's not at least a little bit sketchy. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't really matter what I think. After all, oh my god, it's finally happening. After months and months and more months of doing nothing but the most mind-numbing QA testing, my hard work has finally been recognized. And with such a huge opportunity to boot. Okay, calm down, Amy. Deep breaths. I can't afford to mess this one up, so yeah. I think I'll go through my mental pre-project checklist one last time. I'm pretty sure I haven't forgotten anything, but hey, better safe than sorry. Let's see. Chair and monitor set to their optimal heights, check. Text editor and plugins all installed and set up, check. Are they gonna like throw a rave in the office or something, or like do a let's play? Playlist of chill beats to work to fully populated, check. And my hand stretching exercises, which Julie's always pestering everyone to do before work, check. I mean, that honestly just sounds kind of useful. Um, anyway, yep, looks like everything's good to go. And if that's the case, I can finally start my first project as a professional game developer. Oh, okay. 31st March, midnight. Oh my goodness, the fluorescent lighting. You're telling me you're still looking for work? Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna turn off the lights in my room just because I feel like it'd be more atmospheric. Also, for some reason, my computer's fans are running really loudly right now when I'm playing this game. But anyway. Yeah, if you told me from just a couple months ago that I'd ever get the chance to design my own game at the hottest up and coming indie studio, I would have just laughed in your face. Fresh out of college and with zero connection to speak of, all thanks to my sad inabilities to strike up conversations with the industry big shots during networking sessions, literally me. My future wasn't looking especially bright. Not that there was anything wrong with my portfolio. If anything, I'd say it was actually pretty decent for college students. Literally me. And no, the problem was that the mere thought of talking to these people was enough to reduce me to a stuttering mess. I don't exactly feel at ease locking eyes with these big shots. But I'm gonna lower the volume a little bit. The song's nice though. The plaques in their desks might as well read Smile or Die instead of the usual CEO or executive producer tripe. Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit here, but they're seriously intimidating. By the time I got to my senior year, I'd given up on networking entirely. Sure, my situation was bad enough that breaking down crying in front of a bunch of adults wouldn't have made it worse, but that wasn't something I was interested in going through anyway. I gave up. I completely gave up on like LinkedIn. Even before like anything started, I was just like, no, I don't want to do a LinkedIn. I hate the idea of that for whatever reason. So with zero industry connections and even fewer prospects for my future, I was left with no choice but to return to my extremely East Asian parents' home. Oh, thankfully they welcomed me back with open arms, and always be grateful to them for helping me out in a time of need. Not so thankfully, living with them meant once again being forced to endure an endless slew of passive-aggressive comments about my life choices. Remember little James Chu? You know, the boy next door who you used to play with all the time? And they'd start in their usual mix of Mandarin and Hokkien? Well, we were talking to his parents the other day, and wouldn't you know it, he just finished his art business degree, and he's already handling one of those fancy museums in the city. Little James Chu. Oh, it feels like it was just the other day that you two were running around together. Oh no, the comparisons. Ah yes, if only I had heard even more about the wonders of a business degree growing up, then surely everything would have turned out differently. Still, despite everything, I never regretted choosing a game design degree. Making games professionally has simply been my dream for far too long for me to consider doing anything else. It all started when I discovered Flash games, all the way back in middle school. Yeah. I'd played plenty of games before then, but that was the first time I realized something. That games are actually made by people. Yeah, in hindsight, that's an embarrassing, obvious realization to have. But as a kid who'd never wondered where the media I consumed came from, seeing all those tiny games made by folks who I could talk to through the internet, and who sometimes turn out to be kids as well, was a revelation. I'm remembering about, I'm like recalling the times I was just playing like Line Rider or like Club Penguin or RuneScape or just like random stuff like that. I dove headfirst into the Flash rabbit hole and somehow at some point even managed to become a moderator at Conglomerate, one of the biggest Flash game hubs of the era. Looking back, the whole thing felt kind of surreal, but I didn't think much of it at the time. And being a clueless teen with no concept of making a fool of myself, I was quick to strike up conversations with the developers I admired, who always indulged me with stories of their everyday lives. Their creative processes, their love for the craft, even their difficulties making ends meet in real life. I loved hearing about it all. Looking back, it's no surprise that I eventually started dreaming of one day being in their place, making my own games and babbling about myself to another starry-eyed, aspiring creator. And I dreamed big. My goal was to not only make games, but to make a living doing it as a fully fledged professional. I began furiously devouring every book and video essay on game making that I could find, and when the time finally came for me to enter higher education, I was as prepared as I could have been. I didn't even think twice about choosing the most famed and prestigious game design course in the country, the one veterans always praised as the best gateway into the industry. YouTube? A random YouTube tutorial by some like person from some random part of the world. It was there where I met Julie. God, I can't believe that. You're so talented. I really figured some big studio would have snatched you already. Her father is widely known as one of the pioneers of early PC gaming, and she began following in his footsteps early. Rumor has it that she made her first game before even starting first grade. Like, if I know if that's true, but one thing's for certain, by high school she'd already become a prolific developer, being a minor celebrity in the Flash communities I frequented. Even today, her early games are considered the precursors to the modern art game movement. Huh. Of course, I could have hardly believed that a plebeian such as yours truly would be studying alongside such a superstar, much less, as it turned out, get to be her roommate. Why does this almost read like a Wattpad or AO3 scenario fanfic thing? Or Gacha Life video scenario thing. Anyway. And on top of that, she was a joy to talk to, having a way with words that made it obvious how and why she'd achieved the status that she had. Really, I feel so blessed to have had her as my best friend throughout all these years. It's kind of interesting how this settings bar or whatever, HUD bar, is just kind of like at a very slight slope or angle. I only noticed that until now. Or just now. You're still participating in game jams too, right? Amy. Yeah, enough of them to have a decent portfolio even, but you know how it is. Always the same old, thank you for applying for this job opening, but we don't believe you're a good fit for the company and blah blah blah. I think I might be cursed. Ugh, yeah, that sucks. I swear, these losers don't know what they're missing out on. She was the first and only person to ever take my ideas seriously. Whenever I talked about the kinds of games I wanted to make, everyone from my classmates to the teachers would just roll their eyes, probably sick of hearing this Chinese kid blabbing about weird crap again. That is everyone except for Julie. She'd not only patiently listen to everything I'd say, but also expand on my thoughts with her own ideas and even suggest works that she thought I could draw more inspiration from. That is nice. I don't think I would have been able to finish my dissertation without her feedback, much less figure out what I wanted to write about in the first place. Really, she probably deserves more of the credit for the high distinction that I got for it than I do. Unfortunately, we lost touch with one another after graduation. All I knew was that she'd been hired by some indie studio. I figured she was just busy working on her next masterpiece and left it at that. Until one day she called me out of nowhere. Julie, alright, I'll stop beating around the bush then. A smart girl like you probably realized by now that I didn't call you just to say hi, right? Huh? Huh? Hearing that, my heart immediately started threatening to jump out of my chest. Sure, I had an inkling of where this conversation might be going, but it was accompanied by pure disbelief. There was just no way that she was going to say that, right? Um, this was all wishful thinking on my part, right? Well, it just so happens that our studio's looking for a junior programmer at the moment. You up for it? It wasn't. And so here I am in the office of the hottest indie studio of the year. God, I still can't believe this. Julie had already done so much for me during uni, and now she's both gotten me a job and continued to look out for me here. I'm so glad that she's in my life. I've been working for some time now, so this is probably a good time for me to take a small tea break. I head over to the kitchen and, after putting the water kettle on the stove, turn my attention towards the nearby window. You know what this is reminding me of so far? This is reminding me of another game called something about like Mondays, endless Mondays and deadlines, or Mondays and endless deadlines, or something like that. Featuring a character that's working in like a game development studio, I believe, doing illustration. Yeah, that one was pretty good. Anyway, the rain still hasn't let up, huh? The place Julie and Co. were going to isn't that far from here, but I hope they managed to get there without getting drenched anyway. Though even if they did, she'd probably just laugh about it. As for me, let's just say that I'm a big fan of humanity for inventing buildings. Being able to kick back, relax, and enjoy the gentle sound of falling rain, all from the comfort of somewhere nice and dry, now that's what human progress is all about. The only thing I'm missing here is the tea, and as if on cue, the kettle starts whistling. Perfect. Now, granted, almost everyone who works here is white or Caucasian, so the only tea we have in the office is the super cheap kind. Okay, I saw a post one day that's like, do not get me started on the term white. Maybe I won't go over it in this video, but it is an interesting term for sure. Drinking this always makes me feel like I'm endangering my identity as an Asian person. And it really isn't even that good. But alas, real tea is impossible to find in these parts, so there's not much I can do about it. Just gotta not tell my parents about it, but I'm pretty sure they'd flip out if they found out I'm drinking this stuff. My parents, huh? I still remember how happy they were when I told them I'd finally landed a stable job. It was nice to feel like I was living up to their expectations for once. Is that like a Asian child canon event kind of thing for a lot of kids? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe. If I had to keep being their mini mart cashier for any longer, they'd probably start regretting having me instead of like investing in stocks or something. Okay, I feel like this community needs to stop with like the needlessly like cliche and like self-degrading sort of Asian parent kind of commentary. I just feel like it doesn't go anywhere and it's not that healthy personally, but I mean I understand where it's coming from though, I think. Or I guess not so much as relevant in my case, but I see that sentiment echoed a lot in some of the people like I've interacted with in the past, I think. So yeah, anyway, with this tea in hand, I take a moment to reflect on what I've got so far as I take a sip. I've got to be a little bit careful with what I write because while they did give me a lot of creative freedom for this project, it still needs to be firmly rooted in what's currently our best-selling IP. The strategy RPG Rubium, taking a lot of cues from the latest entry in a certain classic SRPG franchise, the game stood out from the competition by having its main cast consist entirely of LGBTQ plus characters. It was an immediate hit, both among fans of the genre who'd long hungered for that kind of representation and professional game writers for being the first serious LGBTQ plus title. Now, between a seasonal bout of gender dysphoria and a personal lack of time, money, and motivation, I hadn't played the game yet while I joined the studio. I was worried that I'd be making a bad first impression by not being familiar with the studio's biggest hit, but thankfully Julie and the rest of the team were all really nice and understanding about it. They still urged me to check it out once I'd had the chance, though, saying that they'd made the game for people like me in the people like me in the first place. Wow, I know what you are. But now that I think about it, it's kind of weird that they didn't give me a code for it. Not even a discount when I bought it on Steam. Oh, whoops! I'm thinking out loud again. Thankfully nobody's around right now, but geez, I really should stop doing that. And I shouldn't be so skeptical of the studio either, especially after everything they've done for me. With everything that's been going on, I can't blame them for forgetting to give the newbie a free game. Finishing the now lukewarm tea, I quickly washed the cup and put it away before making my way back to my desk. Break time's over, time to get back to work. Randomly blurting out whatever nonsense happens to pass through my head is a bad habit I've had since back in university. Well, at least they're getting it out there. I feel like a lot of people hold on to like intrusive thoughts like internally, and it could be very like uh, anxiety ridden and an almost destructive sort of cyclical process, I feel like sometimes. So in some ways I do feel like voicing it out loud is comparatively just a little bit better. Anyway, at best, I'd say something that turned out to be pretty smart and avoid making a fool out of myself. Although unsurprisingly, that was more the exception than the norm. But this is the kind of thing that happens when you're constantly stressed over having no idea what you're doing, I guess. My brain's fried. This whole thing's a mess. I'd have to rewrite all of it from scratch to actually make it good. I can't do this. Julie, come on, don't be so hard on yourself. Like when I was working on my dissertation, it just wasn't coming together the way I wanted it to. And just thinking about it made me feel so stupid that one time I almost broke down crying in front of my supervisor. I wanted to make an autobiographical game focusing on, well, at the time I only had a vague idea of what it was about, but thinking about it now, it was my way of figuring my stuff out as a closeted queer person. Considering the subject matter, I figured I could make it a walking sim, but that ended up being a lot more work than I thought it would be. You see, there was this thing that irked me about a lot of the walking sims I'd played before, that rather than being a participant, the player was often nothing more than an outside observer to the action. Um, Nothing more than an outside. Hmm. I'm not entirely sure what they mean. I don't think I played enough walking sims to understand, but anyway, and of course, I didn't want my game to be like that. I didn't want to just press X to watch a slideshow about me, but to actually be involved in the journey and maybe even take something of value away from the experience. I guess something like a visual novel versus something more like a 3D environment where you can like interact with things and dialogue is my guess is what they're getting at. I could be off though. Anyway, yeah, leave it to the baby game dev who hadn't even gotten out of her diapers yet to solve this fundamental design problem. It should go without saying that I'd bitten off much more than I could chew. I eventually realized just what a pickle I got into, and yeah, almost broke down crying in front of my supervisor during one of our meetings. God, that was embarrassing. I panicked and stormed out of the room, all the while cursing myself for disappointing everyone I knew, my classmates, my teachers, my parents, and Julie, who for some reason was still looking forward to my game. I get what you mean though, as it is right now, the game parts of the game feel kind of half-baked. But maybe you just need to get some fresh ideas and look at it from a new angle. How am I going to do that? The blues of her eyes sparkled like she'd been waiting for me to ask. Just to be clear, you're first and foremost trying to tell a story through your game, right? I guess. Instead of worrying about translating that story into gameplay, have you considered just writing it out like a book? That's kind of what I was thinking. It is a little bit standard, but maybe just like writing out the script first, initially. Well, I did consider that, but wouldn't it end up too text heavy? I don't think people want to read a game. um, it's literally like most of what my channel has been so far, but anyway. You'd be surprised. Here, let me show you something. She flipped open her laptop and motioned for me to sit beside her on the bed, and she's just going through like the visual novel database currently. Check this game out. It's really cool. Uh, eight Rats, a science fiction adventure. It's this funny title where you're a woman. It's this funny title where you're a woman. Okay, and you have to date hot guys who are anthropomorphized rats. Oh, is this kind of like date everything or whatever, where you can like interact with objects and furniture in your house and like riz them up or whatever. I think in Japan people call this kind of game a visual novel. That sounds kind of stupid. Yeah, it's a silly premise, but the writing and presentation are actually really good. Just give it a try. I clicked on the new game button and was promptly asked for my name by the game. So these visual novels love to ask you for your name, so they can use it as the name of the protagonist for immersion and stuff, you know? Put yours in, it'll make the experience better. I doubted that simply putting my name in could have had such an effect, but I entered Amy into the name entry field anyway. And with that, this visual novel finally began, starting with the sight of a beige-colored school building's comically large clock tower. Oh no. Oh no. No, no, no. No, 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 no. Not this genre. Not this genre again. This is my first day of high school. I want to date a hot guy. That's why I've come to the school. University of Rodents, or UOR for short. Didn't they have like a pigeon version of this or something? Oh, it was like hot to full boyfriend or something. Anyway, I don't want to date guys. Shh, just keep playing. Oh look, it's the upperclassman Radis. Wow, he's so dashing it makes my heart swoon. Radis, greetings, my... Okay, hold on. Greetings, my mice harem. Between the amusingly amateurish triple exclamation marks and the absurdity of being part of a mice harem, I couldn't help but chortle. See, it's pretty funny too. Yeah, I guess it's not that bad. It only took one line for Amy to change her mind. It only took one line. Anyway. Oh, glad you agree. Julie rested her head against my arms as we made our way through the text. She was right. The story actually was funny, even if I struggled to pay attention due to how close she was, like the horny dumbass that I am. Anyway, after about 20 minutes or so of light reading, I'd reached Radis's final scene. Amy, will you be my rat queen? And to my surprise, I actually started tearing up when my protagonist and Radis finally kissed. Despite being such a short story, such a short story, the dramatic moments had landed so well. It was so clear that a lot of effort had been put into it, as silly as it looked. There had been comedy too, yes, but I was blown away by how well the dramatic moments of the story landed. I could tell that a lot of effort had been put into it, as silly as it looked. Man, that was actually really good. Right? Julie lifted her head from my arm and gave me a thumbs up. I've only played this route, but was super surprised by how good it was. I didn't expect a game that's entirely reading to be so interesting. Yeah, same. And you said this came from Japan? Yep, the whole thing got fan translated a while back, and it's been making waves on game dev social media ever since. I can see why. You don't get stuff like this from Western devs. This music, by the way? Anyway. Exactly, that's why I thought you might be interested in it. There's all sorts of different games out there that you can get inspiration from, like these visual novels. As she said this, Julie grinned, not realizing how much impact she'd had on my life. I glance over at the clock. It's 8 p.m. right now, and I have until midnight to finish this, so 4 hours left? I imagine most people consider a deadline this tight to be unacceptable, but honestly, I don't think it's that bad. I'm used to working in these kind of conditions from all the times I had to do it during uni, and This is a perfect opportunity to prove myself to the rest of the team. I bet that's what Julie's thinking too. She's seen me do this before, so she knows I'm up to the task. And really, all things considered, it's not that much work. I'm recycling the existing audiovisual assets from Rubium, so all I have to do is write the story before putting everything together. Basic stuff compared to the work Julie and Co. are putting into the sequel to Rubium. That's why I don't mind working on this one by myself. They deserve a break far more than I do, especially considering it'll be Julie's birthday in a few hours. April 1st? Or March 31st, I'm not sure. Anyway, I yawn. Looking over my progress so far, I guess her birthday would be in April. Anyway, looking over my progress so far, I'd estimate I'm around a quarter of the way through the project. My productivity goes off the charts when I turn my brain off and go on autopilot, though, so if I do that, I should be done in no time. Honestly, same sometimes. As long as I just keep working, everything will turn out great. Okay, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong here? After learning about 8 rats, I decided to restructure my dissertation project into a visual novel. But while I'd gotten a grasp of the basics of the genre, I still felt like there was more that I could learn about it and decided to read the other routes too. They were all great in their own ways, but what really intrigued me were the whispers of a secret lurking in the depths of the story's silly rat society. I could tell that the game was building up to something, and once I finished the 8 main routes, 8? Oh my goodness. Oh, I guess it is in its name. It finally revealed what it was. A final secret 9th route. I do feel like the number 9 has been popping up in my life more recently, personally. A lot of like triple nines. Well, not a lot, but from time to time. Curious about the rumor she'd heard of another long-forgotten rat species, the protagonist ventured into the deepest reaches of the city's sewer system where, oh my goodness, she found an entire society of rat refugees all living in extremely precarious conditions. And these weren't anthropomorphized rats like the other characters' mind. They were actual rats. The leader of the refugees and the root's dateable character, Notamies, explain their people's circumstances to the protagonist. Hold on. Okay. This has taken a turn into an area that is kind of interesting. It's kind of something, but anyway. During our flesh, humans hunted and killed us, desiring our territory. They destroyed our habitat, so we were forced to retreat here, to these sewers, where we now reside in fear. Why would... Okay, I don't know. Anyway, apparently these rats have been based on the real world Notamies macrotis, also known as a big-eared hopping mouse, a now extinct species. This was almost far darker than I'd ever expected this game to get, but it wasn't done just yet. Why am I thinking about Ratatouille? Seeking to make room for a new subway, the humans began clearing out the old sewers with explosives, once again threatening the rats' home. And though they and the protagonist attempted to make a last stand for their survival, they were no match for the humans' advanced weaponry. In the end, the protagonist was forcibly dragged out of the underground by her fellow humans and could do nothing but watch the end of the once thriving sewer system. Once the dust settled and the army finally left, she hurriedly dug through the rubble looking for survivors, but all of the rats she'd finally met and gotten to know had been murdered. Finally, she found a dying Notamies crushed under a rock, and there was nothing she could do for them but cry. Why are you crying, my love? I just wish I could have done more for you. Then remember me, remember all those who you met here, remember that we were alive. Wiping a tear from the protagonist's face with the last of his strength, Notomi smiled and closed her eyes for the final time. I had to lie down for a while after that one. The quality of the other root's writing had already surprised me, but this final one turned out to be a grand science fiction narrative about humans' insatiable appetite for domination over nature and left me completely dumbstruck. I wanted to read something like that again, but more importantly, I wanted to write something like that myself with my own 2 hands. The next day, I spent all my time looking at more visual novels I could read, all the while imagining what wild directions I could take my dissertation project in. Oh my goodness. Wait till Amy finds out about books. Her mind is literally going to like explode. I finally had something I was truly excited to explore through my games. No, but there is something to be said about visual novels and how it incorporates like other aspects, um, or other elements to kind of to provide an experience that's a little bit more distinct from like reading like a book, I guess. But anyway, I've been an avid reader of visual novels since then, and also quickly learned that Julie had gotten some facts about them wrong. For example, very few VNs have name input features, and not all of them are about dating and romance, with even fewer being parodies like A-Rats. And though they're mostly unheard of in the West, there are actually many high-profile Japanese developers who specialize in making them, with their biggest titles often receiving serious critical acclaim for their stories. These misconceptions could give someone a truly erroneous first impression about the medium, as they certainly did to me, but honestly I didn't mind that Julie hadn't gotten everything right. What really mattered was that she'd introduced me to this wonderful new world. She made me realize that it was what I wanted to do with all these ideas I've been stewing in my head since forever. Wanting to read untranslated VNs even led me to start studying Japanese on my own. Not that I made much progress on that just yet, but I did make a lot of friends who both like VNs and do know Japanese, many whom I still talk to today. I appreciate having people to talk about all this with, and it was through them that I'd learn about the hot upcoming titles or untranslated classics. Meanwhile, I'd spend whatever free time I got from school on online game jams. They were never smooth sailing, but they didn't have to be. Between all the hands-on experience making VNs with other people I got and how much fun I had participating in them despite the stress, it truly felt like I had a future doing this. But then I finally graduated and reality came crashing down on me. The honeymoon was over, moving back to my parents' home, the difficulties of job hunting. It all made me a job hunting mention, job hunting 9000 mention. Anyway, it all made me realize that my fantastical dreams of an artist's life were destined to be shattered by capitalism. That's why I'll be eternally grateful to Julie for rescuing me out of that bad future. I finished up the basic scripting of the game and stretched my arms while leaning back in my chair. Phew, that was probably my most intense burst of activity so far. With my head dangling over the chair's headrest, I sneak a glance towards the snack room behind me and try to read the wall clock there upside down. That's 10 p.m., so 2 hours left, huh? Oh, what time is it now? Oh wow, it's like 10. Wow, it's like... Hold on. Because where... My time currently, it's... Let's take a look. I feel like it's 10:04. Wow, it's very close. I feel like I'm like synced up to this in-game scenario, sort of, for some reason. Anyway. So 2 hours left, huh? Yeah, at this awesome pace, that's more than enough to wrap things up and upload the master onto the cloud. Wonder what Julie's doing right now. Back in uni, she'd always complain to me about how much it sucked that her birthday is on... Oh, yeah, on that day. Of all the ones it could have been, but I get the impression that she doesn't care about that anymore. Yep, I can picture her counting down to midnight with a smile on her face, blowing out the candles on that ice cream cake I heard the other managers whispering about, having a good time with the rest of the team. She's worked super hard to get where she is, so it's good to know that the studio is treating her with the respect she deserves. She's definitely going to become a big name in the industry soon. It made me sad that I couldn't go there because of the project, but I could tell how high her expectations were for me when she gave me this. I can't let her down. I know you can do this, Amy. It's going to be the best birthday present ever. That's kind of weird. I mean, it's a little bit weird, but I don't know. Who am I to judge? Their dynamic could have like their own... I mean, they can have their own dynamic, I guess. Anyway. And after saying that, she sneakily winked at Rubium's lead writer, a cishead dude. Hate that guy. Whoops, did it again. I should just stop thinking. Around the time I joined the team, everyone, especially the lead writer, had started talking about expanding Rubium into a multimedia franchise. With the critical and commercial success of the game still fresh in everyone's mind and the console ports approaching release, mood in the office was euphoric. Sky's the limit? Shoot for the moon? Nah, it felt like we could reach for the stars. Of course, I also got swept up in the excitement and dove headfirst into my work to help make that grand future a reality, even if the most I was doing was dealing with bug reports. I mean, just imagine a Rubium anime and all of the fan art and fanfics that we'd get. I was elated at the thought of being a part of this franchise, however small my contributions to it may be. But the hype quickly died out once the console ports were released. We'd outsourced them to another developer because we weren't experienced at porting, but they all fricked it up. Between the inconsistent frame rate, graphical glitches, and myriad game breaking bugs, Rubium was basically unplayable on console. Ooh. Our existing fans were disappointed, of course, as were all the new players who'd been waiting for the ports to get into the series, but unfortunately, there was nothing we could do about it. Again, we're a small team, and everyone was too busy working on other things anyway. Management simply shrugged and said, not publicly of course, that this was out of their hands. Better to focus on our next project, the bigger, more bombastic sequel to Rubium. Ooh. The lead writer was already spitballing ideas to the director, and the whole team was invited to present their own as well. I tried suggesting some of mine too, only to be politely told off by the others that I was too new. Amy, I know that we're a team and that games are collaborative projects, but you're still new around here, and Rubium is something that you weren't around for. We're a lot more experienced, so for now, just sit back and let us show you the ropes of the game dev. I almost sense where this is going. It almost feels like and then everyone clapped once Amy spoke up and said something interesting about some idea or fixed some bug or whatever. I'm almost expecting an everyone stood up and clapped moment. But anyway, honestly, hearing that from Julie and all while she had her usual smile on her face to boot really hurt me. It's true that I'm basically still an outsider to Rubium, but when I finally got to play it not too long ago, I actually thought of a number of tweaks to the formula that I thought could work really well for the sequel. For example, having the cutscenes use ADV presentation, that is, the style people think of when they hear visual novel, with character portraits and a text box. I think the lower fidelity paradoxically feels more real and evocative than 3D models, repeating the same canned motions over and over. And it lightened the workload for the cutscene programmers too, since they wouldn't have to constantly invent new ways to make these static scenes look interesting. But I was just the newbie, so obviously it was impossible for me to add anything of value to the game. With nothing to do but watch everyone else talk about this shiny new project that I wouldn't even be a part of, I started daydreaming about the kind of works that I'd want to direct myself one day. And one idea in particular was slowly taking shape in my head. A visual novel about a society where necromancy and immortality are commonplace? Wow. I started thinking about it after reading a recently translated cyberpunk VN with some zombies in it. There's this chainsaw-wielding lesbian who... Gee, Amy, are you listening? Sorry. That was the first time I ever saw Julie look so irritated. Here's a little advice. You have to think a bit more about how you're coming across to everybody here right now. I worked really hard to get you hired here because I know how much potential you have, and I don't want to see that go to waste. So don't let me down, okay? Hearing that, I just kept my head down, mumbled some more apologies, and held my tears the best I could. 30 minutes left, and only 2 scenes to go. I lean back on my seat, which reminds me of how bad I need a chiropractor to straighten my back, and lazily skim over what I've written so far. Man, what the heck am I doing? I push the thought of how bad the stuff I've hastily written is out of my mind and try to think about Julie instead. She was my first ever crush, and still is. To be honest, I've always wished I had the courage to confess to her, but maybe it's for the best that I don't. Because I know she'd just reject me for the lead writer. I look around the empty office, thinking about what it's like during daytime. Cishet men and women strolling back and forth, laughing at their gullible LGBTQ plus audience for so easily buying into their crap. All we have to do is say trans rights and they'll eat this stuff up. Ooh. Myself sitting in my cubicle with my headphones on, unable to stop hearing these comments no matter how loud I turn up the volume on my music. And Julie, who never bothers hiding the kisses she blows to the lead writer. Okay, I don't know if I want to get into this, but um, I do feel like I was sort of in a similar kind of studio, not for game development, but for something else, studio environment like this, and I feel like at the time I did sense a similar kind of atmosphere to what this is kind of describing. At the time, I genuinely felt like a disconnect with it. Um, I'm not sure how I'd feel about it now. I think it would depend. It would definitely depend on the place and the people. But yeah, I don't think this is an uncommon thing. There is like a particular atmosphere about like certain creative arts studios of a certain size. Um, Definitely have a certain weird energy sometimes going on. But anyway, she taps on the shoulder of an overworked Amy, who's seen countless nights beta testing broken builds and proofreading the lead writer's drivel. Good news, Amy. We've got a project that's perfect for you. Julie grabs Amy's hand and drags her to the... It's kind of weird how it switches to this sort of outside perspective now. To the meeting room. The lead writer, along with the various other higher-ups from the management, are already there. It's her first time participating in such a meeting since there was never any need for a lowly QA tester to participate in one of them, and an extra person who would mean no empty chairs for the lead writer to rest his feet on. Here she is. Well, it's your idea, so you tell her. Alright, so my birthday's coming up, and I'm sure you remember that I really hate the day it is, right? If it was up to me, I'd just ignore it, but since we're a small studio and everyone knows me, some people are expecting us to do something for it. So after mulling it over, we figured that, hey, might as well make something fun out of it. And you're the perfect person for what I have in mind. Oh. Amy tilts her head in confusion. Is Amy starting to disassociate? What kind of something do you mean? You've been making those visual novels since back when we were roommates, right? Well, how about this? A Rubium visual novel. Without even waiting for her words to register in Amy's brain, Julie giggles in delight at her own genius idea before skipping over to the front of the room and preparing the projector for a presentation about it. Rubium already had some dating elements, but I think it'd be really funny to go all in on them for this so that you can date like all the older male characters. Our marketing research has shown that they're really popular, and we are always hearing from people who wish they had more screen time in the game. I'm getting the vibe that everyone just wants to hang out with their faves some more, which is great news for us. We originally considered adding more content of that kind for Rubium, but we shelved the idea. Too fanservice-y, and it didn't mesh well with the main focus of the game, combat. But with you and your expertise on this visual novel dating stuff, I started thinking about bringing that idea back for funsies, and I moved closer to Amy. So here's the pitch. You're the starry-eyed girl student who gets to date the hot male teachers in Rubium. And there could be super fan servicey scenes where like Freddy shows off his six-pack and the protagonist nosebleeds. I look at her expression of stupefaction. And maybe a scene where Prince Gall, looking super hunky, goes to the swimming pool and his maids read those doujin porn comics to him. That'd be so funny since he's supposed to be the super serious type, right? And I wonder what is she thinking about right now. Maybe she's remembering all the visual novels she read before and how they managed to be so much more than stupid one-off jokes. Maybe she's regretting all her life choices that have led her to this moment. Maybe she's thinking about the memories she shared with Julie all those years ago. I wonder because I don't remember it myself. So all I can do is watch as she blankly stares into nothing and speculate about her state of mind. So what do you think? I know you're the most familiar with all the tropes and conventions of the genre out of all of us, and we all agree that you'd be the best to do this based on that. it'd just be a small thing too, so I can easily see you writing and coding it in time for my birthday. Julie finishes her spiel off by shooting Amy her trademark thumbs up, which she and I return with our most practiced smile. Um, we really wish we could, help you out with the coding and stuff, but we already started pre-production on Rubium 2, and that's got us stretched thin, so you'll have to do this by yourself. But it will be treated as an official part of the franchise, and it could even become its own spin-off series after. After my birthday, yep. Yeah, that. So, I watch as Amy repeatedly opens and closes her mouth, clumsily trying to think of what to say, but looking more like a fish drowning out of water. Are we in? I'm not sure whose perspective we're in. Are we in Julie's or like a dissociated Amy's or someone else? I'm not entirely clear on this. You want me to make a parody visual novel? Oh, no, not a parody, a real visual novel. Like 8 Rats. And then my phone's alarm drags me back to the real world. I take a quick look at the clock. 10 minutes left. Oh shoot, I have to finish this now, or my paycheck's getting cut. My paycheck, huh? The exorbitant amount I make as such a valued member of this team had been enough to suffocate the dreams I once had. What does that mean? Wait, what? The exorbitant amount I make as such a valued member of this team has been enough to suffocate the dreams I once had? I'm guessing they mean like the income has sort of like shifted their priorities, maybe, or like, I don't know, got them sort of like distracted from their original sort of intentions or goals. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, I guess it is. Yeah, developing my own games and making a living out of them. No, sacrifice all. Oh, okay, this is what they mean. No, sacrifice all of yourself to Rubium, the beloved and critically acclaimed LGBTQ title written and created by a mostly cis-het studio. I almost do feel like this is a lot of... I almost do feel like this is kind of the vibe I got from like the Date Everything game. I didn't play it myself, but I watched some gameplay. And it almost feels like it has that sort of energy where it's made by like this type of studio that kind of knows that there are like certain, I don't know, certain like signaling techniques and like very fan surfacey like tropes that are like so over the top that have the guise of being like LGBTQ friendly, I guess, but still I think mainly appeals to probably like cishet women, most likely. I don't know, or at the very least like bisexual, self-proclaimed like bisexual ladies that probably skew a very certain way, but I'm not going to get into that currently. That's like a topic of discussion for another time, and one that I'm not actually like that. I don't really like care for that topic that much to begin with, but it is something to think about a little bit. Anyway, I need to stop thinking because okay, I guess I'll say a little bit more, which is I feel like a lot of the quote unquote like, I'm not even gonna say LGBTQ, I'm gonna say queer. A lot of like the more queer coded games, you can tell are actually coded by like I don't want to say actual queers, but I feel like they're developed by some very interesting and talented people, and they don't often market themselves or label their game as being like overtly like queer or LGBTQ friendly. It is just very evident in its atmosphere usually, in its sort of energy, and those are the games that I personally would tend to gravitate towards, personally, rather than like a big name, like a big name quarter one or quarter two or quarter three or quarter four title that is like marketed and developed in a very like fan servicey and tropey kind of way, that is like has a lot of like market research, and its demographic is just sort of like a little bit misleading. But anyway, okay, I need to stop thinking. I don't have the time to think. I just need to finish this thing and be done with it. Ooh. And yet my memories of the time I spent with Julie in university have frozen my fingers, preventing me from typing the last few lines of code. Did I imagine all of it? Her being my best friend, supporting me, when no one else did, introducing me to... Oh, hold on, sorry. Uh, introducing me... Oh. I think my eyes are burning because my room is so dark and I'm just staring at my monitor. Anyway, introducing me to everything that's inspired my games. Are those memories fake? Does she only have eyes for the lead writer and I'm killing myself here for nothing but some money? Uh, Almost done. 5 minutes left. At this point, I'm just skipping through the game to make sure everything works as it should. It's not very long, and I don't give a darn about typos or punctuation errors, just that it runs, so whatever. A thought floats to the forefront of my mind, one by a part of me that I've become intimately familiar with. I'm so grateful for having such an opportunity, incredible opportunity. A lot of people would kill for what I have. Nah, get rid of it. Get rid of it. Ditch it, toss it, get rid of it. Write it down on a piece of paper, crumble it up, throw it into like a campfire, and wish it well. This is not a healthy mindset. Okay. I will say it is like it can be okay, especially if like living circumstances is like a necessity, but it is often a more like stifling creative energy, in my opinion, to go with this sort of mentality. And I feel like this is more of like an environmentally enforced kind of thing, probably from like family and friends and like the schooling system, in most places. But yeah, this I would not personally, at this point, I would not entirely agree with this kind of sentiment, even though I kind of know where it's coming from. But as much as I've always wanted to believe otherwise, no, that's bull crap. Yeah, yeah. This is just another cynical, disposable product meant only to boost the studio's reputation and show that they're hip and funny and looking out for their LGBTQ plus audience. Oh, they're going for it. They're going for it. Let's go. In a few weeks, this one-note joke will have been completely forgotten. Just like every other visual novel I kid, people will stream it, laugh about how funny and cool the developers are. I'll clip that, and then promptly erase it from their memories. They're going. They're tearing into this now, and I'm for it. I support Amy's crash out in this moment. And the best part is that I'm only being credited as an assistant writer here, despite making the entire freaking thing, because obviously nobody cares about some random aspiring visual novel developer's take on their beloved characters. People only care about the lead writer, just like Julie. Alright, that was the worst click of the tongue of all time, or whatever that was. Alright, I've tested the visual novel, and it seems to run fine, without any obvious glitches or crashes. But as I go over the text one last time, I realize it's still missing something, a final line that really brings the whole thing together. All the fans of Rubium who'd enjoy this garbage deserve a complete experience after all. I open the text editor, and it's then that a strong sense of deja vu strikes me. I'm reminded of the time I've been working on my dissertation, talking to Julie about visual novels, having a good time. I wonder what the Amy from back then would think if she saw me today. It's kind of retarded. What would she say about me writing visual novels like this one and ruining her, no, our dreams of creating the art that we've always wanted to create? She'd probably laugh at me for being such a dumbass. Yeah. With a deep breath, I type out the final line, thus completing the visual novel that will haunt me until the day I die. Uh, Happy April Fools, everyone. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, honestly, I am so glad. I'm so glad this game didn't go for the route that I almost expected it to go to, which is like Amy like solving a game breaking bug or like introducing a cool new idea to the team and then everyone like finally accepts her or something and like everyone stands up and claps and like accepts her and integrates her into their like weird energy culture. But no, I'm very glad that it went into this direction instead. Um, where it's literally Amy just having like a crash out, like a sort of like like a sort of existential crisis and a reevaluation of her life here, or their life here in this current moment. Um, and yeah, it this definitely opens up a lot of uncertainty, but a lot of like possibility as well for the future. And I think in terms of it, and it opens up a direction for Amy that I feel like is a little bit more like true to her like to her core and what she's sort of seeking for, in my opinion. Um, there might be a little bit more. Let me continue. Okay, yeah, that was it. Okay, yeah, I like that. At the start of, I think this was intentional in a way, or maybe it wasn't like fully like entirely um, intentional, but the start. I feel like the start of this game, especially in combination with like the very almost stock imagey 3D backgrounds, was sort of like an intentional choice, which is to I guess like lull the readers into this sense of like, oh, is this just going to be like a very like stock it almost has like a stock image feeling, um for me at least, when I read like the starting few sort of like lines of this game or slides of this game or whatever. um and I think that's what they were going for, and then by the end of it, I mean it's kind of like it like kind of maintains that energy throughout, or that vibe, but by the end of it, it slowly starts to like differentiate itself and then kind of go in its own direction, in its writing mainly. But it does so in a way that's very interesting, and I kind of like the choice near the end where it sort of felt like the narrator sort of like detached from Amy's like first person point of view monologue kind of thing, and then it became like this detached perspective that was just sort of like looking in on the situation. I feel like this is probably like a dissociative kind of thing, and I think it was done in a way that was pretty pretty casual, but very convincing as well. Um, so yeah, I like this one. This one's pretty good. Um, Sorry. Oh, so they actually had quite a bit of people working on this. Pretty good. Oh, I didn't even read the like tagline for this game. It's Professor Lily's creative band of wage slaves presents a free game to you. An educational experience of life under capitalism's duress. What does it mean to work inside the game industry or outside of it? Ooh, yeah. Lots to think about. I mean, I kind of want to make I'm not like that fixated on game making necessarily. I kind of just mostly enjoy doing whatever, um, like drawing or writing out random ideas. Uh, but at some point, I've been talking about this recently. I do feel like I just want to like produce or make something that's a little bit more of like a cohesive project rather than a bunch of like one-off drawings or little things here and there. So I think I'd probably just lean towards like a short visual novel story kind of thing, and then maybe upload on itch.io or submit it to one of these game jam things. I don't even know anything about game jam culture or whatever, but I might look into that. And this game has sort of inspired me a little bit more to lean towards that direction maybe. So yeah, that was 31st March midnight. I'll probably upload this tonight as well, as a sort of reminder. Because I think this is what this game is to both like the team that written this or produced it and to those that are probably reading this game. And that's like it is a reminder for, I think, mostly retaining a sort of like a sense of like creative freedom in a way, or like a sense of a play, I would say, a sense of play that's sort of un detached or less attached to sort of like industry practices and industry culture, which can get kind of into like some weird energy sometimes. Um, so yeah, uh, pretty good. I'd recommend. I mean, yeah, I'd recommend this as like a. I guess I do feel a little bit weird kind of reading these sometimes, where I do feel like sometimes it's just better for a person to experience these things on their own. Um, so I guess maybe I'll add like a little bit of a caption or a something in the description maybe. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay.